to have two people who have the most critical jobs in the state and in the county because they are responsible for the organization and conduct of elections. And we all know what that means this year. Um, so I'm going to go straight to our first speaker because Secretary of State Fontes unexpectedly got called to another commitment in a very short time. And so we are appreciative that he can give us any time at all. So welcome, Secretary, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And it's so nice to be here with you today. Uh, Hello from Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh,
I am on the other side of the country right now, doing my very best. If you hear a little bit of chitter chatter in the background, I've actually come out of a meeting where there's a whole bunch of folks who are working with some different people to raise money for pro-democracy candidates across the United States of America. And as you know, both myself and Recorder Cázares-Kelly are very much pro-democracy folks, although she's not on the ballot. I am. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about the upcoming election and what the Secretary of State's office has been doing to try to secure things. So, as a matter of very brief introduction, I'm the Secretary of State here in Arizona. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for what you're doing. The bottom line is this for you, the fact that you are organized, the fact that you're doing what citizens are supposed to do, engaging, having the conversations, being interested in all of those things that help so many other thousands, if not millions of Arizonans to actually have the information they need to vote, to influence folks like me across the public, the public service sector, to make sure that we have what we need to make things happen. That's what's critically important. And that's one of the things that has been to some degree missing, because I think, as we all recognize, for a long time, we just took our democracy for granted. We took our elections officials for granted. We took the rules for granted. We took the fact that folks in office would follow the rules for granted. And we have come to a new era, which has actually been the subject of a variety of different meetings that we've had here. But let's get right to 2026, because I want to make sure that you've got plenty of time to ask me questions. So start getting those together. In 2026, we're already very much getting ready for the exercise of our elections. As you all know, the primary has been moved up to July 21st. That means 29 days before that is the voter registration deadline. My office has continued to try to provide that information. And what we're doing right now is a series of tabletop exercises in the tradition of what we did in 2024. Tabletop exercises are basically role-playing games that a whole bunch of different people from different sectors come together to work out how it is to communicate better in case things go awry.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah,
With apologies for one moment, you mentioned questions from our members. I would ask members when they put a question in the chat, and that's the thing we'd ask you to do is put a question in the chat, preface it with either the word question or ask, and we'll track them and we can get back. Thank you.
perfect. No, thank you so much for that heads up. So basically what we have been doing across the state, just like we did in 2024, is putting on these tabletop exercises. What does that really mean? Well, it means that we get local elections officials like Gabriella and her team, the folks at the elections department, and other elections officials, because a lot of people become elections officials, by the way. The Board of Supervisors plays a role. The Sheriff's Department plays a role. County emergency managers and other folks in the county play a role. My office plays a role. Law enforcement plays a role. Municipalities play a role. There's a whole bunch of folks that are involved in making sure that our elections happen smoothly. And in 2024, through this series of exercises in the state, as a whole state, we were able to defray and stay away from the real problems that happened on election day because of the training that we did, because of the fact that we were able to prepare. What a lot of people on this call might not know is that on election day in 2024 in Arizona, we had 15 bomb threats, actual, real, verified bomb threats on election day. But a lot of folks didn't hear about them. Why? Because we did the training and the exercises necessary to bring folks in to that world of quick communication, decisive leadership, to make sure that we took care of our voters first. And then we didn't have to worry about the distraction of everything else that was happening, including those bomb threats. In fact, the only real delay that we saw because of one of those 15 bomb threats in Arizona was in Navajo County. A remote location had to stop voting for 20 minutes. Those are the practical day in and day out things that my office does to help make sure that our elections go smoothly. But I will say, your other guest who's going to be on, and Gabriella, I love you. Everybody on this call should know that I do. And I'm sorry we're not going to have kind of a back and forth, but I am short for time. The counties are the ones that run elections. Your county elections officials, the election director, the county recorder, the teams that they build, those are the folks who actually do it because we're a bottom up state in Arizona. I won't say at the top, but at the administrative level, the rule setting level, you have the Secretary of State and my team. And the way I can analogize it best is I'm sort of like a commissioner for a major league, for a major sports league, right? I'm like the commissioner. I'm the one who says, here's the rules that the counties get to play by. I certify the elections officials for to make sure that they get to do what they need to do. I certify the equipment. We do a lot of testing. We do logic and accuracy testing. I appoint a committee that sets the standards for the statewide sort of the standards that really tell the manufacturers what they need to do to make sure to be able to sell their equipment in Arizona. So we operate at the rulemaking space. And then we also try to do the interactions with other entities. Like we try to work with the federal government. That hasn't been very easy lately, but we try. We work with the state legislature to try to get funding for the counties. And one of the things we've been successful at over the last several years is making sure that the counties didn't have to pay what used to be a regular portion of their dues, if you will, for the statewide voter registration system. We've found sources for the counties. So we really are sort of like try to put the grease on the skids to make sure the counties can get their jobs done. Now, we've dealt with a lot of issues recently, and I'll touch on some of those because I definitely want to get to some of these questions in just a couple minutes here. A lot of the legal challenges that we've seen are on people's minds. We were very successful in keeping the Department of Justice from getting your personal identifying information. A quick history: last June, the DOJ made an illegal request that I turn over the sensitive part of your voter information. I said no. In fact, I told them to pound sand, quite famously now, I guess. It was just the Marine in me. You know, you want something, pound sand, you get said, please. Well, they didn't say please, but they asked me again. And I said, please refer to my prior courts. The answer is no. And then they ended up suing us. Well, like so many other secretaries of state, and I think we were the sixth, we won our lawsuit. They sued me to get it. And a Trump-appointed conservative judge by the name of Susan Brnovich, by the way, she's the widow to former two-time Republican Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Susan Brnovich said no. Not only did she say no, but she dismissed the DOJ's case with prejudice and said they couldn't amend their complaint because to do so would be legally futile. Those were her words, which is a damnation when it comes down to what judges usually say. In other words, they were not entitled to it in the first place, which, when you're in settings like the one I'm in, you look across the country, 12 different secretaries of state actually surrendered their voter data to the Department of Justice. We did not do that. Nevada did not do that. California did not do that. Oregon did not do that. Massachusetts did not do that. But this is not just Democrats, because Chris Warner, the very MAGA Secretary of State in West Virginia, also did not turn over that voter data because he understands the law. There are other Republican secretaries of state who didn't turn it over because, generally speaking, my colleague across the country and I understand that we have to operate within the law if our systems will have integrity and people will continue to believe in the veracity of their elections. We've dealt with a lot of other things, and the most recent one was a defeat in court. So we've won most all of the cases that we've been involved in, but we didn't win this one independently. We've hurt the most. And here's why it hurts. Because what we wanted to do is make sure that ADA certified equipment to help voters with disabilities in the precincts in Pinal County and across the state, that they were available for any voter in the county to vote anywhere in the county. So let's say you've got a disability and right across the street from you is that community center. Well, if that street is a precinct line and that across the street is a different precinct, you'd have to travel somewhere else. Probably it's some inconvenience and it might be harder than to just go across the street. With my plan and the way that I set up the rules, any voter can vote anywhere in their county. So that voter could just go across the street. Now the court has said, no, if the county government wants not to have vote centers, they can deny those out of precinct from voting anywhere in the county, even voters with disabilities. Now, this isn't a hard thing to do. Most all of the counties have the technology and can program their equipment to do this. So I was really upset. Well, not really upset. I'll say it was a defeat. There's a very high likelihood that we're going to challenge this in court. And so we're going to keep trying to do everything we can to help voters. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go to questions in just a minute here. But before I do, let me give you what you can do, because I think this is critically important. There's a couple of things you can do as a concerned citizen. Number one, you can talk to elections officials like the county recorder, like the county election director, and you can find out what sorts of jobs are available, what sorts of training you can have to go in and be one of those folks who actually runs our elections, who actually does the work at our polling places, in the warehouse, and the offices to do signature verification. Wherever they do that stuff, you can be a person who helps out on the very official side of things. On the political side, you can approach your county party, whatever party you're with, because only the county party chairs can appoint observers in polling places, which really help to protect voters from potential shenanigans out there. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And so those are just a couple of examples of how you can get directly involved in helping all of our citizens have the capacity and a good experience to exercise those fundamental rights. So I'm going to hold off there. Joseph, I think you're the guy with magic wand here, so I'm going to go to you and the chat, and I'm going to try to get as many questions answered as possible before I've got to take off in another 10 minutes here.
Thank you. You talked about the federal request for voter data and how you responded to that.
Yep.
What do you see coming up closer to the election? Is there the likelihood or danger that there will be federal interference? For example, federal agents at polling places?
I'm less concerned about agents in polling places than I am concerned about shenanigans at the Postal Service, because I think that while the president doesn't have carte blanche control over the United States Postal Service, he has a lot of influence there. The notion of deploying troops or ICE agents and stuff at polling places, I think that's another big scare tactic that they're using. They can't do that across the country. It's just not enough human beings to do that. We've got almost 10,000 voting jurisdictions with multiple, if not hundreds, of polling places in the bigger ones. There's just not the manpower to execute something like that. That doesn't mean they're not going to try to scare folks. So the remedy to all of that is vote early. It's really that simple. 2 words: vote early. And I say this all the time. We have 27 days of early voting in Arizona. Use the first one. Go vote. And if you're going to take a whole bunch of people to vote early on the first day, please tell Gabriella or the election director or whoever's in charge of early voting in Pima County so that they'll be ready for you, because you don't want to surprise them. But definitely go out and vote early. What else do you got, Joseph?
Thank you. I saw lots of questions coming in, and a couple of my colleagues, I think, are going to relay those to you right now.
Sure.
Questions from the members. Tina, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, I know. I just did that. Okay, so what is the impact of the Kelly versus Louisiana decision, if any?
Well,
On
Arizona has an independent redistricting commission with its own separate criteria. But one of the things it has to do is comply with the Voting Rights Act. And so what we've heard Senate President Peterson say is that majority minority communities, because they're based on race, are inherently racist. Well, he's flat wrong. And if he'd been a lawyer for more than 30 days, he'd understand that. But let's excuse that shortcoming of his. And let's understand this. The reason that we didn't get into the redistricting fight that's been happening across the country is because we have that independent commission. Number two, Arizona's voters put that commission in the Constitution. So it would take a constitutional amendment to change the criterion that they use. Now, the governor gets to appoint some folks. Different folks get to appoint to the independent redistricting commission. You're not going to see any action there, as far as I can tell, in the real world. You're going to see a lot of rhetoric. You're going to see a lot of yap, 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 and distraction. Relax. I don't think Arizona is going to have the kind of problem that other states have. That being said, it's devastating for other states. It's a real significant problem across the country. And the biggest reason it's a problem is because of what it took to get the Voting Rights Act in the first place. Let's not forget, folks like John Lewis got their heads bashed in on the Edmund Pettus Bridge so that we could have those rights enshrined in statute. This Supreme Court has totally eviscerated all of the efforts of the civil rights movement as it pertains to voting in the last couple of major cases regarding the Voting Rights Act. It's a terrible betrayal of what the American people marched on the streets for, and that Congress finally gave us. And God willing, and the creek don't rise, either this generation or the next will be able to fix what the Supreme Court has screwed up.
Thank you. And there's a new one. Are there any current Arizona legislative threats to our elections that worry you? For example, anything that might be veto proof?
Yeah, there's like 40 of those things that they're trying to send up to the ballot. I don't think a lot of them are going to make it. In fact, the vast majority probably won't. There is one initiative that I like that is going to try to protect ballot by mail by enshrining it in the Constitution. Some people don't like it because it puts some of the other, what folks consider more strict requirements into the Constitution as well. But guess what? Arizona has some of the most permissive and accessible voting regulations in the United States of America. I'm behind that initiative. I can't remember what it's called, but I know folks know that it's out there. So if you want to take some action and get involved in that, I'm going to be backing that initiative to enshrine vote by mail in our Constitution, to absolutely once and for all push back against the election deniers that want to kill ballot by mail.
Yeah, and there were a number of questions about what we can do, and you answered part of that in terms of how to volunteer, how to become an observer. And there was one particular about what if and when a voter goes to the poll and they see something awry, what they could do about, what should one do?
Well, what one should do is vote early and avoid all that nonsense. And I'm just going to keep saying that over and over and over again. If you don't want to have a problem on election day, don't vote on election day. Vote beforehand. We get 27 days, folks, of early voting. And I'm pretty sure, like in many other counties, the county recorder, who you're going to talk to in a minute, she can give you more details, is going to tell you how that's possible. Look, don't wait. Just don't wait. If you don't want to be part, because a lot of the mindset from a lot of these folks is like, oh, election day, and it's the drama, and it's the headlines, and it's the distraction. If you bank your vote by voting early, you have to worry about any of that crap. So what I'm telling folks is just vote early and be done with it. And then on election day, you can sit back with everybody else, take a nice long nap, wait till late in the evening, and then get up and, watch for results.
Thank you very much. And there's a new one that is about the future. Will we ever get ranked choice voting? And if not, why not? And is anybody working on that issue?
There's a lot of people talking about that. And there's a lot of alternatives to the way we vote now. Quite frankly, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if it really works better or not. And because what's better, right? You got to start with that baseline. What is it that you are actually trying to accomplish? If you're trying to accomplish political wins, as the Secretary of State, which is how I'm speaking to you today, not as a partisan, as the Secretary of State, what I can say is this: I just want everybody to have access. I just want our system to work for all of the voters. Political outcomes be damned. But ranked choice voting, open primaries, a lot of these other things, well, I think they're very interesting. And I've always been excited about engaging in the conversation. They have more to do with outcomes than they do with access. Okay. And that I draw a bright line difference between those two things. So will it ever happen? It's possible. Can it ever happen? Absolutely. Arizona has been at the forefront. We're the first ones who did online voter registration. We were a very early pioneer in ballot by mail, no excuse absentee voting. So we can do a lot of great stuff here in Arizona. And I have time for one more question. I'm being told over here. I'm sorry.
Okay, how prevalent is voter fraud in Arizona?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's de minimis. Look, in January, I submitted 28 cases from 2024 to the Attorney General for investigation. 28 cases out of how many ballots were cast? 4 million, something like a little over 4 million ballots. It's not a thing. And the 28 cases, 25 of them were folks who voted in Arizona and then later voted in another state because they forgot, they got confused, whatever. Don't ask me about the partisan breakdown. It's not important to me. The bottom line is this. The mythology around voter fraud is designed to get you to misbelieve in the good work that your fellow citizens do. Remember how I said you should work at the polling places? Well, guess who does work at the polling places? Folks like you, your neighbors, your friends, retired teachers, veterans. And when people lie about our elections, what they're doing is lying about you. They're lying about your fellow citizens. They're lying about the goodness and grit of American citizens who go out there just to help their fellow citizens vote for very little pay, super long hours. This is the attack against American people that folks aren't calling out. Well, I'm calling it out, and I will continue to do so because the mythologies have to end. I said it in The Guardian the other day. Not a direct quote, but election denialism is like herpes. It's just this thing that keeps popping up and it's horrific. We've got to get rid of it one way or another. And as long as I'm Secretary of State, we're going to keep calling it for what it is. I'm so grateful to be here with you. Thank you so much for accommodating my crazy, crazy schedule. Shout out and a big hug to my former boss, Gabriella Cázares-Kelly. I know she's on the call. And love you guys. Congratulations to all the Wildcat fans on having made the Final Four. Could have had a little bit of a better shot. What are you showing me? Tell me.
Okay.
Oh, okay. There's a link in the chat that I'm being shown right now to the Free, Fair, and Secure Elections Act. That's the initiative that I was talking about earlier. So go check that out. It's put on there by Alex Wilkinson, my assistant. Thank you, Alex. And I appreciate you all. I'm going to let you go now. Joseph, Tina, everybody on the call. Bye-bye. Keep up the good work. Don't let the bastards get you down. Have high spirits. Let's get out there and fight the good fight for our democracy together. We're gonna get through this thing like we've gotten through everything else in this country. Love you guys. Take care.
Thank you very much. You've given us lots of information and lots of reasons to do what we want to be doing. We appreciate it.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
As I look at the screen, I can't tell whether the recorder is with us or not.
Yes, she did join.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. So as you all know now, we have Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, who is the recorder for Pima County. She is, as I understand her job, the principal election official for the county. And so her job, like the secretary's, is particularly critical in the times that we find ourselves in this year. Recorder Kelly has worked as a teacher. She's been, what I found interesting in reading a little bit about her, she's a co-founder of the Indivisible chapter in the Tohono O'odham Nation. And so she's one of us in another way that is important. She has bachelor's degrees and master's degrees from Arizona universities and is a person whom many of us have heard before and are very supportive of. What I'd like to do, if you agree then, is I will give you the floor to talk a little bit about what you see as the issues and concerns and plans as we head into the election season. And then we'll have some questions for you.
All right. Well, skuktash, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Beautiful. Skuktash, Anya Nyoptugi, Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, Pismochkup, Amjud, Anya Woodka Pima, Chukshan, Aha Handam, Hi. My name is Gabriella Cázares-Kelly. I'm from the communities of Pisimo'o and Coop, which are located on the far west end of rural Pima County. That's where I'm originally from. I'm a member of the Tohono Nation, the first Native American to hold a countywide seat in Pima County, and one of just a handful across the country, actually. I was voted in, I took office in 2021. And so I'm in my sixth year as recorder. And I think it's really important for you all to know when I first started running for recorder, this was a quiet, sleepy administrative role. It was a position that you just didn't hear a lot about in the news and the media. It was just, I was really focused on things like envelopes and outreach. Uh, and through the 2020 election cycle, through the campaign season, when prominent figures in on the news, that's all I'll say, started talking about election fraud and um, the security of ballots and questioning all of those things, and through the um, cyber ninjas debacle in Maricopa, our office became such a bigger position. It became this office that now requires all of this additional outreach, not only to inform people of what they need to know to participate, but also to reassure the public that the integrity of our elections has remained the same. Our elections are safe and secure. As you just heard, Secretary Fontes says there's less than 28 cases in over 4 million voters and counting. And the important thing to know is those are 28 people who got caught trying to do something nefarious. And our system um, alerted us of that, and we're now addressing it. So I wanted today to share a little bit about just a couple of things. One, we have made changes to the way that we're processing your ballot. I want to be able to share that information here. I have a little slideshow here. I also want to talk about the various ways in which people can participate, because a lot of them are not known. And then I think there was a question about why we made the change to the single envelope. So I'll actually start with that first, and then hopefully I can. Am I able to share? Yes. Okay. Give me 1 second here while I pull that up. And okay, can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to zoom you through there it is, the one envelope. Ah, so one really important thing to know, there is an op-ed that I wrote, I personally wrote. It is on our website that has the really nitty-gritty information about why I made this decision. This is something that we send to any voter who has questions about what prompted this decision. It is really important to know that we did not make this decision lightly. I did not make this decision lightly. We spent over 2 years discussing what our options were with other elected officials across the state and across the country. We were having conversations with our printers, whether or not we could come up with a different format and the pros and cons of those formats. So we spent a lot of time talking about this, but we went to the one envelope solution, and I call it a solution because there were very many things that were prompting a problem. There were problems. One of the first things, the time that it takes for us to remove the outer privacy envelope, which is simply a return envelope, was not only extremely time consuming, it's very physically demanding. It's a physically demanding process to mill all of those open, to check to see if there's a ballot inside. If there isn't, there's a separate protocol. If not, we are then separating those, and we're having to do that by hand. And anytime we're handling ballot affidavits, it's two people of opposite party, so two different teams, two different members of a team are engaging in that process. They would have to then go through all of those envelopes, get them prepared for scanning, and then go back through those envelopes to make sure that nothing was missed. A lot of people were sending us what we call naked ballots, which are ballots in the return envelope and not with the required legal statement, the ballot affidavit. And because they were without the affidavit, which is personalized per voter, we were not getting the information for that voter. So voters were sending us the ballots in those return envelopes, and we didn't know who they were. There was no way for us to determine who those voters were. Sometimes they might write a return address or stick a sticker on there, but for the most part, if we got a naked ballot, there was no way for us to even inform the voter. So we had a number of people who thought they were voting and following the directions, only to find out they did not. And so that was a major issue. But one of the biggest things that we were really considering was about the time and the physical demand of separating a ballot affidavit envelope, which is required by law, to from a return envelope, which was a courtesy. It's a courtesy envelope. Our office, over the past 6 years since I have been in office, has been highly scrutinized by the public. We are on the receiving end of a lot of hate sometimes. In 2022, we received a prominent candidate tweeted about how we were intentionally taking our time to process ballots, and it resulted in death threats that we had to then forward to the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, ACTIC, and the FBI and Homeland Security. This is a very real part of the experience that we're having across the state and across the nation, of the threats that are coming in to election officers and our staff. And a lot of it has to do with speed. So there's a lot of the conspiracy theories that are alleging that we're doing wrong. There's wrongdoing as we're processing your ballot affidavits. In order for us to switch to the one envelope system, we have reduced the number of time that it takes for us to process those ballots. A really wonderful thing has happened where as soon as we receive those ballot affidavits, we're able to scan them immediately, which allows the voter to receive an alert if they're signed up for our text message system, or to receive an email. And that way they know we've received their ballot. That also helps our staff because we'd have callers calling and saying, "Have you received my ballot? I mailed it a week ago." And with the return envelope situation, with the two envelopes, we would have to open all of those and go through a bunch of different scenarios before we could even scan them. So we're able to confirm receipt of a ballot up to 2 days earlier than we were, which is a very big deal. That's an incredible change, and we're very excited for that. The other thing is because because there's no opportunity for a voter to put it in the wrong ballot affidavit envelope, there's no they could put it in maybe their partners, their spouses, envelope instead. We have a protocol for that. That's not a means for disqualification. But now that we're able to receive those much sooner, and because there's only one envelope, that has reduced the number of naked ballots. And those numbers were like 750 naked ballots in a presidential election cycle. That is a huge amount. And that could be the difference of a race. So those margins really, that really could be impacted. You think about the Martha McSally, Ron Barber race, that was only, I think that's 134 ballot difference. And so if you have 750 people who think that they're voting and might have voted in a congressional race of that size, that is potentially, at least 300 people's votes who were not being able to be counted. And that's significant. So that is why I made the decision. We did explore options for having like a privacy sleeve or like what we call the privacy flap, which would have required us to tear off a portion so that we could then access the visible signature and the phone number if needed. But the feedback that we've gotten from other offices around the state and the country is that those are very easy to rip. They're designed to rip. And because of that, a lot of times, they tear in transit through the U.S. Postal Service. The mail is not handled very gently. It's just processed. And that um, a lot of people to combat that would use packing tape, duct tape, all kinds of other things to try to affix that flap in another way, which would mean a very manual process of us cutting away with a pair of scissors and trying not to damage the signature. And so that actually causes more problems than it helps. And the other thing is, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, we now have a way to scan your ballot affidavits I can scan, I think 50,000, I'm sorry, like 15,000 ballot affidavits in a number of just in like 20 minutes. It's a very fast process with the machinery that we now have in Pima County. That machine costs $300,000, and we want to ensure that nothing gets stuck in there, and there aren't pieces of paper or random pieces of tape and things like that. People put enough weird stuff in your ballot affidavit. But to have anything that would encourage those little tiny pieces of paper, it's just bad news for that equipment. And so we were not willing to risk the $300,000 piece of equipment. I'm going to stop there for a second. Are there any questions? I see there's something in the chat.
Be-
Oh,
Before we go to questions, let me ask you just one that has to do with the conduct of elections in the election sites. We hear terms like election engineering, political speech, voter interference. Can you help us understand what those mean? How important are they, and to what extent are they, and how do you enforce?
yeah. So the voter interference. So I think it's really important for you all to know that my office is working closely with the county. We actually just announced a election um, oversight task force today. We're going to be working with the different departments within our county, which includes security. It includes the IT department, the larger IT department, communications, and Office of Emergency Management. But on top of all of that, we are in regular communication with the Secretary of State's office, Homeland Security, with the FBI if needed, as well as local law enforcement who have been specifically trained for election-related situations. We are also always in contact with our legal team through Laura Conover's office to ensure that everything that we are doing is according to statute. And so when we're talking about voter interference and misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, because there's three different types, one indicating that it is an accident, that people are sharing misinformation. Disinformation is information that is intentionally said to create some havoc. But malinformation is when you are taking existing like websites and mirroring them and making them look like a legitimate source when they are not. And so it's like a higher level of effort. And so we are regularly trained on how to spot all of those things. We have a really high level of internal cybersecurity, as well as all of our social media sites are being monitored, not only by our team, but Secretary of State's team, Homeland Security, FBI. We are very, very much on top of combating and protecting ourselves and preparing for those types of behaviors. And we are seeing them. We do see them in the form of phone abuse. Sometimes people call and they say really nasty, terrible things to us. Sometimes it's racist, it's homophobic, it's just talking about the lack of integrity of my staff members who are probably at that time working overtime and having done so for weeks in a row. And so it's just a really heartbreaking. We see that type of behavior, but a lot of times, as soon as we are able to answer somebody's question, let me take a look at your voting record. Let me pull it up and find out and tell you what the timestamps are for everything that we have processed. 99.9% of the time, those concerns are dissipated just by them interacting with one of my staff members. We usually have people who are calling, they're angry, they want to know, they demand answers. And then my staff are able to give them the answers. And they're like, oh, that does make sense. Oh, I did make a change at Motor Vehicle Division and I did forget. Oh, that's right. I canceled my active early voting list. Oh, that's right. And we're able to, send them the proper forms, or whatever that is. And so, or help them better understand, like, no, your ballot cannot be forwarded to Ohio, even though you put in a form with the post office. Like, it's against federal law. And so once you're explaining those things to people, most often they they cool down, and they'll allow us to help them. So um, I think that just all of these conversations in general, though, I think that you all are at a elevated um, in an elevated concern. I think it impacts regular people, people who are not conspiracy theorists also. So I think that is um, a byproduct of it. And unfortunately, I think it's going to persist for quite some time. I think this is the new normal. Since I have been in office in 2020, since 2021, I've been waiting for it to calm down and it hasn't. And so we have been spending a lot of time putting out a lot of basic information on our website. If you notice, our website, we have frequently asked questions. We have put up additional reports that help explain a lot of things. We try to put in common use terminology, and we're just trying to redesign things to make it easier to understand so that people have less mistakes when they're participating.
Thank you. If you could give us just a minute or two, I know Tina has some questions from our members that she'd like to give you.
Yes. So hi, Gabriella. Thank you so much for being here. So someone said okay, you gave the timeline of when we hear back from the recorder's office, and if it goes over, um, um, when would be a good time to contact the office if there's still a concern?
Oh, okay. So it depends on every single person, and it depends on where you are mailing from. If you live in the metropolitan area of Tucson and you are not seeing anything within 4 days, That may be a time where you might wonder why. That's like a kind of a long time. If you are outside of the metropolitan area of Tucson, it might be 7 days. So it really depends on how your mail behaves usually, and most people are very aware, like, oh, this is going to take 3 days. Oh, or this might come here the very same day. But what I strongly, strongly recommend is please return your ballot within that first week that you've received it. That's incredibly helpful for us. We do get a huge amount right at the very beginning. But that gives you enough time so that you would have even 3 weeks still to correct something if something happened. Every once in a while, and it happens to everybody, it maybe instead of the ballot, maybe you're talking to somebody at the same time and you accidentally put your instructions in there, or maybe you send us your grocery list. Things like that happen. We want to be able to let you know. I saw that there was a question about phone numbers. That's one of the reasons that we have that, because people change their phone numbers so often. I bet many of you probably still have um, landline numbers on your voter registration. And if you have a cell phone, you might not have even recognized that that's not associated with your voter registration form. And so you can, of course, submit a new voter registration form if you want to go through motor vehicle division or fill out a paper form. You can do that. And a pro level tip is if you do it on paper, in the area where it asks for your phone number, if you put unlisted, my staff will put it in a different section when they process that affidavit or that voter registration form, and we will put it in your notes and not in the public public available data that gets sent out. So that's also a hot tip for you.
That's,
Um,
thank you. And just before I go on, a shout out to your team. Barbara called a couple of weeks ago and your staff was incredibly helpful. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. We spend a lot of time really just trying to address the needs of the community, what we're hearing from people in groups such as this, and the questions that people have. Often, I'll talk about one thing and then I'll come back to my office and I'll say, this is something that was really interesting that spent 20 minutes on this question alone. Let's make a graphic for it and get it up on the website. So a lot of things happen like that. So do I have enough time to share with you the life of a ballot?
Oh,
Yeah,
please.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll get back to questions after that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So just kidding. Where
I think, Joe, there's plenty of time, right?
okay.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know why it is not liking me at the moment. Screen 2. Let me try this. I
Here it
can't
is.
shift. No, that's my old one.
Oh.
Let's see if it starts up again. Oops, just kidding. That's my calendar. Disregard, please.
Well, while we're waiting, another shout out, Reverend Karen McDonald. The mantra is everybody vote early.
Yes, the mantra is everybody, please vote early. That's really helpful, especially from a scheduling standpoint, for our staff members. The more ballots that we get early on, the earlier we're able to have staff come in and start processing them. Every once in a while, we'll get like a lull and, we'll get a trickle of ballot affidavits. So we'll send people home. We'll send our workers home because we don't have enough work for them to do. And then we'll get a burst and then we'll be behind. So if we can have more early on, it means we're going to process those consistently. And that's helpful for us. Okay, so everybody can see my screen, right? Early ballot process, life of a ballot. You guys can't see this?
No.
That's not
No.
what we're seeing. We're
Oh.
seeing protect the vote and then
Oh, okay. I looked that up for, oops, let me see. I looked that up for Secretary Fontes. Let me move it over. One second here. Here we are. Okay. And you can see it now, correct?
Yes.
All right. So when I put it on presentation mode, it goes onto my other screen and I don't know why it's doing that. So I'm sorry, you're gonna have to see it from here. But so the first one is early ballot process and life of a ballot. So we receive your ballot affidavits. The majority of the ballots are still coming through in the U.S. Post Office. That is our number one preference of ballot affidavits coming from anywhere in the county. We have a great partnership with the post office. We are working with them all the time to ensure that all of your ballot affidavits are received in a timely manner. And they actually go above and beyond for us and keep us informed every morning about how many pieces of mail we have ready for us to be processed, which helps us with our scheduling also. We of course have the option, if you want to come to any of our early voting locations or election site, you can drop off your ballot there. We can issue you a site ballot. If you make a mistake, you spill your coffee, maybe you like to vote on election day and this one time you have to go out of town. It doesn't matter your situation. You walk into a location, we can issue you a site issued ballot. And then of course, we now have our official ballot drop boxes. We're very excited to have these boxes. We have 4 of them right now. Pardon me, 3 of them installed right now, 2 in the downtown area. We have one that is a drive-through in the downtown area, and there was a little bit of an issue with a dip in the road right before that caused some scraping on the bottom of the vehicles. We're working on getting that fixed before the primary, so it should be a nice, clean, smooth ride. We have a box on the east side, and then we are working on installing more boxes. We are looking at installing in Sahuarita, Oro Valley, Pascuayaki, Cells, and Ajo. We are doing this in 3 phases, and so that would basically be phase 2, and then phase 3 will be additional locations that have yet to be identified, which will be coming in the next uh, fiscal year because they're very expensive. We have bipartisan courier teams. Can you see my
Yes.
Sure. Okay. We have bipartisan courier teams, so it's 2 people of opposite political parties. We have them identified by lanyard. Staff are not allowed on the premises or to handle ballots without their lanyard. And so we assign blue for Dems, red for Republicans, and purple for any other party. So Green Party, Libertarian, or independent, no party designated. And so they wear safety vests, they wear an ID, and they will have the keys to any boxes that they're opening. They will have official branding, and we will have it on our vehicles as well. Once they're brought into our facility, which is a secure ballot processing center, our bipartisan teams prepare them for scanning. That means we're putting them all in the right order. And now that we don't have to separate them from return envelopes, it's a much faster process. The ballots remain sealed while they are in the recorder's office completely. We do not open those ballot affidavits. We are only concerned with a legal notice on the outside, which is the ballot affidavit envelope. And I saw that there was a question about the phone numbers. And again, we have that request for a phone number because people will put their most recent phone number there, and as opposed to what might be in their voting record, which in this day and age could be changed 20 different times. And we don't do anything with that phone number. We do not store it. We do not keep it. It is only for that election, and that is the only time that we're really going to reference it. So they are received, they are secured in our secure ballot storage room, we call it ballot room A. And then they're immediately sorted to make sure that they're all facing the right direction, and they're prepared for scanning. So I mentioned a $300,000 piece of equipment. We call it the Agilis. It is a ballot scanner sorter, and it scans the unique barcode that is on your ballot affidavit, and it ties it to your voter record. So immediately we're able to say, oh yes, Tina Whitley, we received her ballot affidavit. We have her barcode, and here is the image. And so that's when you will receive a text alert if you're signed up for the text alerts or email alerts, or if you just want to check our website or call us. Either way, we would be able to find out much sooner. Before we purchased this Agilis, we were using hand scanners, and we were only able to put about a chunk of like 5 at a time. So you would put like 5 at a time. You would hope that they all were able to get scanned, and you would do it a couple of times. And it literally took 3 people to be able to just scan, maybe 100 ballots in a time frame. This is 3 people, and it can do thousands in just a few minutes. It's incredible. So once they are scanned, they go for signature verification. And we made a recent change so that if you see this little image here, we have a can you all see the signature verification page? We have a copy of your voter registration signature. So the signature you submitted when you filled out a voter registration form, we have that on file. If you have done it on paper, and I'm going to show you more examples of this a little later, but if you did it on paper, we'll have that. If you've changed your address, we're going to have that. If you've gone to the MVD, we're going to have that. So we have, for many people, we have a ton of samples. And then we will compare it on the screen as opposed to holding up that ballot affidavit, which is what we used to do. We used to hold it up to the computer screen and say, is this Tina? I'm not sure. And now we're able to look at the screens together. And so it's helpful for us. And if we need to, we can go into your record and, like, for example, my signature, I have 12 different samples just during my time as a Pima County resident. The number of times that I've moved, I've changed my political party, or I've done anything like that, signed up for the active early voting list or taken myself off, whatever. I have 12 different signatures on file. And so we will actually go through and click through. And let's say that Tina, for her voter registration record, put in her middle name, and then on her ballot affidavit, she forgot. As long as we can find enough characteristics to compare against, we're going to accept it. And so if it is not a clear acceptance, and what we tell staff, and human beings are the ones doing this is not automated, this is not computerized. It is human beings are making judgment calls about your signature. And if they do not feel comfortable, and we always tell them, if you are not comfortable, if this were to get called in a court of law, and you were to have to stand in front of a judge and explain why you chose this signature and why you accepted it, then you do not accept it. You send it to somebody else, and somebody else is going to check it. And so we go to a process called second checking, where a more experienced signature verifier is going to review your ballot affidavit. They're going to review that signature. They have a lot of, they've been doing it a lot longer. And so this is usually our permanent staff or long time. Sometimes we have like former supervisors that want to come back and do this work for us. And we're very we're very appreciative of our staff who do that. But if they can't make a decision about whether or not they feel comfortable accepting this signature, they're going to send it over to what we call ballot curing. And so this is where it's so important for us to have your phone number. And for you to program our phone number into your phone. We please call us back, or we're gonna try to make a phone call. We're gonna leave a message if we can. Sometimes people have just full voicemails and we can't. We're going to send you a text message. We're going to try to send you an email, and we're going to send you a paper letter in the mail. We are going to do everything within our power to contact you. If it gets closer and closer to election day and we still have not heard back from you, we're going to see if you have anybody within your household who we can call. Maybe you're not answering your phone, but your husband or your wife is, or your child who lives with you. If we have somebody else's, we're going to say, hey, we need to really get a hold of Joseph. Can you have him call us back? Usually that is a way that we can get those signatures verified, and we have up to 5 days. Well, we start immediately. As soon as we encounter a situation with a signature where we can't verify, we immediately start calling. So some people will have a whole month of us pestering them. But we also have up to 5 days after an election. So 5 days after, we may still be calling you and trying to verify if you indeed did sign something. Once it is verified, it goes back through an audit scan, which means it goes back through our Agilis machine. And then we do a verbal audit. So we will bundle every single ballot affidavit with a roster of, it's a roster of 50 names, and all of those have to match. So we have 2 staff members who are double checking to make sure that the roster matches the actual number of envelopes. So if there's an envelope, an affidavit that has not been signature verified, that somehow snuck its way, maybe it just got stuck to, maybe there was gum. I don't know. Weird stuff, like I said, weird stuff in there sometimes. And maybe it just got stuck to another ballot affidavit. Well, we're going to make sure that that gets pulled out. Or if there's a ballot that was signature verified, but it didn't make it on the, we don't actually physically have it, which is something we used to have a problem with a lot more when people were physically handling your ballots. Then we're going to find it within this last audit scan and the bundling process. And then we physically turn over your audited ballot affidavit envelopes after they're bundled in those chunks of 50 with the rosters that say what's contained in that bundle. We physically roll them over to the elections department, where they will confirm that they have everything that we said that we sent. And then they will tabulate those ballot affidavits. And this 1-page day in the life of the ballot, I will link that in the chat a little later, but you can look at this. It's actually a 1-page beautiful printout. My staff just cut it up for this presentation, but it's a very helpful graphic of like what actually happens to your ballot affidavit.
It really is, Gabriella. And there is a question, if a person knows that the recorder's office has the correct phone number and they leave the phone number blank, the ballot, what happens?
Yes. So that's yes, I urge you, if you are uncomfortable putting your phone number on your ballot affidavit, please look at your voter dashboard. If that number is correct, you're free to leave it off, but that is at your risk if that number does not match. So if we have your correct number on file, that's fine. But we're not going to call old phone numbers. We're only going to call your most up-to-date phone number that you have on file, or your up-to-date email. And you can do that through Service Arizona. Okay.
Thanks.
The next question that we get a lot is, okay, we're talking about these signature verifications. What does that mean? So there is a signature verification guide, and Secretary Fontes has one on his site. This is an old picture of one from Secretary Hobbs, but they're very similar. And we are looking for broad characteristics and local characteristics that match your voting record. Essentially, we're looking at your signature as if it's a Picasso. Can we determine that it's a Picasso? Is it the same exact one? We're looking at some general characteristics. We go through forensic training. We actually just had a forensic training just the other day, a statewide through Secretary of State. Plus, we have our own internal signature verification training, and then we go through a signature verification training for the process too. So lots and lots of training about that. If you ever have a question, some people have multiple signatures. If you're not sure, we strongly recommend you take a look at your Arizona ID, so your driver's license or um, whatever you have, because usually we have that on record. Signatures change over time. You will see this when young voters, when the 18-year-olds are first signing up, their signature looks very, very different, often because it's not quite matured. And they're still developing their identity really, and figuring out how they want to flourish. And they're not really signing a lot of things in high school. So when they get a little older and they start establishing their signature and it becomes much more consistent, we call that a mature signature. And then as life goes on, we see sometimes changes in that. These are my signatures these are literally from my voting record. And I remember I said I had 12. You can see, I think this one was my earliest one. And look how careful and clear all of my writing was. And I wrote on the line and everything. And then you can see that kind of changing over time. You can see that it's gotten faster and faster. And then you can see when I got married, my name became so long, Gabriella Cázares-Kelly. That is a mouthful. And then you see I start misspelling my name. I don't even put my full initials there. It says Gabrc Kelly. But you can see that the G's maintained the same recognizable format. My C's and my Y's, they all are following that same kind of loopy format. And so this was one of my ballot affidavits. And then I shorten it even more to just GC Kelly. But I have enough signatures on file that my staff would accept it. But they do call this an inconsistent signature, and they use my this slide to explain that in their trainings, what an inconsistent signature looks like. And so I guess I'm a poster child for it. And for voters who require assistance, um, assistance is so confusing. It can be something as minimal as you have somebody putting your ballot in the envelope and sealing it for you. Or maybe it's, somebody, when my late mom used to vote by mail, I would read to her because she had a vision impairment and she couldn't really see it. And she didn't want a large print ballot, which is huge. It's like a tablecloth size. We call it a tablecloth. So I would read her verbally the ballot measures, the candidates. We would go through every single one. And she would tell me which one she wanted me to bubble in, and she trusted me to do that for her. And then afterwards, I would assemble the ballot affidavit and I would hand it to her so she could sign it. And then just because I felt like, okay, I was the one who was writing on this, I'm going to go ahead and sign that I was an assistant, in case there's a question. There are some people who are unable to make their mark. If you have a quadriplegic who is unable to make a mark, then there's going to be a certain protocol that we go through. We're not going to be asking people what their disabilities are. It's private. We're just going to ask you whether or not this was your signature whether your signature has changed significantly, and those kinds of things. We're going to verify who you are. If you ever get a phone call like this and you're like, I don't know if this is legit, hang up, look our number up online and call us and say, I think I just got a call here. 99% of the time that it is us and we're just trying to confirm. But of course, you should always be very cautious of people who are asking you to confirm your private information over the phone. Um, but when we say a person can make their mark, it literally could be an X, but we are going to be calling to make sure that that person was the person who submitted their signature, and made those choices, and they were not being coerced or pressured to do so.
Thank you, Gabriella. I'm interrupting a little bit because we've had a couple of questions
Sure.
about trusting the federal government, working with DHS and that kind, not DHS, listen to me. Anyway, but there is one, how cordial and trusting is the relationship between the county and federal entities involved in voting?
This is a really great question, because what we hear coming out from the highest office is often not friendly to election services. But I will tell you that the public servants who have been serving in these roles, the experts who have been working in election infrastructure, and cybersecurity for decades, they are as concerned as we all are. They are people who live within our communities, they are our friends, and they are our neighbors. And so we have a really positive working environment with all of those agencies. And what I think has we've been really impacted by is the reduction of those services. So, for example, there used to be a organization called the Cyber Information Security Administration. I think that's the right acronym. CISA. We no longer have CISA. We're specifically dealing with cybersecurity concerns, and we no longer have an entire unit within the federal government that provides us with those services. We can still get those same services from Homeland Security or the FBI or whatever Secretary of State's office, but it does put more pressure on those entities, and everybody is resource starved. So we're going to get it done no matter what. But as far as sustainability, I'm always trying to highlight that to our lawmakers that we need more infrastructure support.
That's wonderful. And I'd like to add on to that because there have been a number of questions about how to get involved, how to join your staff, how to, help out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important for you all to know there are two separate arms of elections. One is the recorder's office, which we are in the process of hiring right now for the primary and the general elections. We're hoping to hire people that will work with us in the primary and in the general. And typically, their assignments are usually the shortest period we would have is about a week of working an early voting site. It is a little bit demanding. It is day to day, every single day, for at least 8 hours. You're coming, Monday through Friday. It's actually more than 8 hours because you're coming in early. You're setting up for the duration of the day, and then at the end you have closing duties. And depending on the volume, that could take longer. In each scenario. We are also hiring, I believe, I'm not sure if we've met all of our needs for signature verifiers. So people who are trained to look at your signatures and decide whether or not we're going to accept it. We have a need for couriers, people to drive ballots around from one location to another, with another person in the vehicle. We have phone operators who are given scripts that I personally review to make sure we're answering in the most concise and voter-friendly way as possible. And we also have IT aides, people who are tasked with helping our IT services, printer jams, and things like that. And so we have a lot of different roles, but again, they are much longer. The elections department, they have some of those long-term positions, especially with staging, um, delivery, and I think they need people to actually process the ballots, but they also have opportunities for 1 day of service, which of course, as you know, is a very long day. It's from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. that you're open. And that does mean that you need to come, you would need to do a day of training, you would need to do a day of setup, and then you would have the actual day. And that day starts very, very early for folks, and it could go into the night depending on how many voters show up in that location. But those are also very helpful. Having those staffed is absolutely helpful to our staff. Even though they're completely different departments, we want to see people volunteering. We tend to see a lot of Democrats, which is wonderful. It's wonderful for Pima County. However, to do a lot of functions by per state law, we need to have a bipartisan opportunity. And so we're really struggling with finding enough Republicans throughout Pima County to fill all of those vacancies. And sometimes if we get one at every location and it's just one, that person struggles to have a lunch break or go to the bathroom or whatever. So, if you have Republican colleagues, but either way, please just apply if that's something you're interested in. And then I saw that there was a question about observers. You can go through your political party chair and request to be an observer. You can actually come to our ballot processing center and take a look. We do have the availability for people to come and view our early voting locations and vote centers. However, I will tell you, people who do that are often very bored. So, I don't know what you're looking for. We don't require observers to do our functions. That is a completely optional opportunity for people. And for us, we only allow our supervisors or site captains to speak with those folks. So nobody is allowed to talk to them. They're not allowed to talk to voters. They're just standing there. After a while, they're like, I don't know why I'm here. So, but I will say that my ballot processing center is really cool to see all of that happening and what people are doing and the different movements that are going on there. But it is a very tight space. And, sometimes just like the availability of an extra chair is just not there. And so it can be a bit much, but
So Gabrielle, who does one contact in the elections committee or elections department and in Pima County Recorder to get involved in these ways?
so if you're talking about working for my office, you can visit my website, recorder.pima.gov. And if you look in the about, there will be an area for jobs. If you are looking to work the 1 day for election day only at a vote center, you would go to um, uh, Pima.vote. Yes, Pima.vote. And follow the links there for election day poll workers. If you are interested in doing observation, you would need to contact your political party chair and talk with them. And usually they have like a coordinator, somebody who's doing that. And that is completely not within our scope at all. What we will do is we will receive your information of when and where you expect to be with your information that says, yes, the party chair approved you to come here. That gets sent to us, and then you would show up with your credentials and share those at the site, and we would let you in.
And do you need recent experience for the paid jobs, or do
No, we provide all training for all of those positions, and we ask people what their preferences are. We are absolutely, if somebody is not comfortable driving, we're not going to schedule them to be a courier. We're asking for people, are you computer savvy? Yeah, are you somebody who just wants to organize envelopes? Like that is something that is a function that we need. We need somebody to put them in order, to empty out ballot boxes and put those envelopes in order. So, there's some kind of something for everybody.
And then we are running out of time. So there is one question that's been in the chat for a while. If the drop boxes are secure and are they movable?
They are not movable. So yes, they are secure. They are bolted into concrete with it's U-shaped bolts. There's a whole technical thing that the facility says insured, but they're in slabs of concrete. They are made of galvanized steel. They have anti-pry door jams. They have very small openings for just a ballot affidavit to fit. It's so narrow that we actually, when we found out that there was going to be a two-page ballot affidavit, we stuffed one in there and tried to see, like, will this prevent it from going through? But it's fine. You can probably put like two ballots in at a time. They have waterless fire extinguishers installed inside them. And there are star-shaped um, two star-shaped keys that are unique to that lock and which will not open even another lockbox. And those are secured, and we keep those secured. We also maintain a private courier schedule, so we are not publicly posting when we're emptying those couriers. And then in the 2025 election cycle, we did have a situation with an overstuffed ballot drop box at our East Side location, and a conspiracy theorist took video of my staff who were clearly just doing their job and made some allegations online, and which resulted in death threats. It resulted in just terrible online abuse for my staff. We were never in any harm. There was never any credible threats or anything like that. It was just online grossness. But we have since then increased the number of ballot retrievals from those locations. And we are working on installing larger boxes at some of our more popular sites. And so that is continuing. And then, of course, as I said, we're going to be installing them in various locations throughout Pima County as well.
Thank you. And one last question about the wonderful job that outreach job that the Pima County Recorder's Office staff has provided in locations around Pima County to educate the public about voting process. And if time allows, might that be possible this year? Or is that continuing?
Yes. So visit our website. There is an outreach page. You're able to sign up for outreach, and whenever we have an opportunity like a training, we will send out an email to our listserv. Also, if you have a group that's large enough that you want to request to do a specific training, we might be able to accommodate that. The closer we get to election, the less available my staff are, because they're going to be handling ballots or any of the other things that we need them to do. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, visit our website, and I'll put that page specifically in the chat.
Well, Gabriella, this has been amazing. And it has really been amazing. And just to understand what goes into an election and how well and how secure and safe and how much public information is going out. And it's just really wonderful to have had you and Secretary Fontes on our meeting today. And we have a lot of work to do now to help get the word out about early voting and about all the wonderful things that happens in Pima County with our ballots. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and for everybody who's here. Thank you so much for coming. We really, really, really appreciate it, and just spread the word as much as you can. So thank you. Thank you.
The last thing I will share with all of you is the number one concern that my office has regarding communication in this particular primary election, which will be July 21st, is that independent or no party designated voters do not automatically get a ballot. They
Right.
have to request which party's ballot they would like. And because they don't automatically get something in the mail, it causes some confusion. We did send out a mail ballot notice. You should have all gotten those like a week ago. If you didn't, that's a great time for you to check your voter dashboard. But take a look at their voter dashboard, log into it, make sure that you play around in it because it's a really great resource. And I'll leave you with this last thing. I'm the county recorder. My office is responsible for voter registration and early voting. I mail out the ballots. Last night, my husband was looking through a pile of mail and he says, "Why did you and our daughter get these ballot notice or these envelopes and I didn't get one from your office? Why is that?" And so I said, "This is a ballot notice. Are you signed up for the active early voting list?" And my husband did not know whether or not he was signed up for the active early voting list, which he is not. But he did request a one-time ballot, and that's what happened in the last election. So I'm telling him, honey, you need to just sign up for the active early voting because this is going to happen again in like 2 years. So, please make sure that you're taking a look at your voter registration on your voter dashboard. People make weird changes all of the time. Anything as small as like motor vehicle division, renewal of a document could change your voter registration if you are not careful and you just click through. So, get familiar with that site and then share that information with your friends and family. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
so much, Gabriella.
Of course.
Yeah. So that will end our meeting for May, and it gives us a lot to do, everyone. And we all have one little mandate to either volunteer, but get the word out and get out the vote. Help get out the vote. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining the meeting, and thank you especially to our speakers, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes and Pima County Recorder Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, and thank you to our steering committee for running the meeting. And I'm going to have to end the meeting now because I have a conflict at 5:30, but I dropped some resources in the chat, and as always, the full chat will be included with the meeting minutes, and the recording of this meeting will be up on our YouTube channel later this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you.